Hello and welcome to the Recon Cast, a regular topic-based podcast show featuring myself and one, if not both of my sisters, Louise and Vanessa, and within which we are going to discuss all sorts of things from games, movies, TV, popular culture, to the sort of silly stuff you might talk about with your mates, like zombies or time travel and such shenanigans. This will usually be recorded once a month and split up into 3 topics and a compilation. So 4 separate videos that will be posted roughly once a week throughout each month. So if that sounds like your sort of thing, then sit back and enjoy. Topic 1. What was your favourite generation of consoles? Not a specific console per se, but a generation of consoles. For example, the 5th generation PS1, Sega Saturn, N64 era, for example, or PS2, Xbox, etc, etc. So, what was your favourite generation? You don't have to say the generation if you don't know which one it pertains to. Just say the consoles. But what era of gaming really floats your boat? So, thoughts, anyone?
It's quite tricky, really. Like personally, because I loved all like the Sega and stuff for like the fun and the the jokes and having a laugh on it and stuff and not taking it seriously. But then again, when it comes to like the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox and stuff, I don't know. I think
I'll tell you what. I'll go first. Give you guys some time to mull on it. Now, I really like the PS1 era. I think it was chock-a-blocked with potential. PS1, N64, like I was saying. That era is a solid, strong era. But for me, that era is more like an era of potential because 3D was just becoming like the thing. That was, that was the major quantum leap was to 3D. And I think people were still trying to find their feet with it. Like, you take something like Tomb Raider, which was amazing. You go back and play it now, it's like, it's janky as fuck and it doesn't look great. It's really hard to play.
I have replayed
really?
it on the PS3 and I loved it.
Really?
Yeah, the controls are awful, but I really enjoyed it.
even the graphics.
Yeah, the graphics were like groundbreaking.
Yeah, they were at the time.
When you're in like the big ruins and everything, they were really good. It was very impressive. I played the crap out of that game, but I had another go for nostalgia. I still enjoy it.
It's like, I worry about going back for some games nostalgia-wise, whether you start to lose something. I was a bit worried about that with Resident Evil 4 with the control system, but that was fine, But then that's not as far back. Like something like, again, we talk about some of these games a lot, but like Jade Cocoon, games like that, I would quite happily go back for that, even if it looks a bit janky. But I think the art style of it in general, it's just shot in a really specific way. It's almost like Eco and Shadow of the Colossus. It's almost got that sort of style, before that was really a thing. So, so I think you'd be okay with that. But yes, but I think that generation for me is more about potential. And you can go back to like where me and Lou both cut our teeth. The Sega Mega Drive SNES era, great games, great things. But it's more like games were like a thing. It's not, the games didn't start to become what they could be. Games as they progressed become art forms in their own right, akin to like film. Like you could argue some of the Final Fantasies were quite amazing with their story and all that sort of stuff, but it's not the same as I don't know, even Final Fantasy 7 or 8 or stuff, or like going into the next era, Final Fantasy 10, and even them, they've got their problems, but going through that whole progression, you get to games like The Last of Us or Journey or something like that. These games are like art forms in their own right. They stand up toe to toe with film and literature and things like that. And for me, in the Sega Mega Drive era, games were great,
but they weren't beautiful.
They were just games.
Yeah.
They were just games. They weren't more than that.
There may be the odd exception, but
there wasn't a lot that you could like. They didn't concentrate as much on the story or the cinematic.
They couldn't really. I mean, it's more like gameplay was king, and that's great. Gameplay is obviously a major important part to video games, but just gameplay alone, it struggles to make, you know, it more than the sum of its parts. So for me, where we started, I don't think it was there yet. I think we're only just starting to really get where it's really becoming like artistic. Perhaps midway through the PS3 era into now, you know, the PS4, Xbox One era. But for me, where it started to become more than the sum of its parts, I'd say initially Final Fantasy VII in that era. For me, it showed me that a game could be more than, you know, just a game. But for me, the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, original Xbox, I would say Xbox One, but then that could get confusing. Game Boy Advanced era. I think that's, for me, it's like a perfect storm of things are not just potential now. Things are starting to reach their potential. We've learnt from our lessons, you know, previously on the N64 and PlayStation, and now games like GTA, you know, are starting to grow upon that. GTA 3, you know, Max Payne. These are like these are like super early games that, you know, into your Resident Evil 4s and even your Final Fantasy 10s, which is deeply flawed in some ways. But, you know, then moving on, you can have all the other Final Fantasies into that, Final Fantasy 12, and, you know, personally that game didn't blow me away, but I know a lot of people that it did. And I think so. For me, again, maybe it's just rose tinted glasses on my part, but for me, that's the generation that speaks to me the most. I mean, there was a lot of competition. You know, GameCube was probably the weakest in that era, but GameCube, there was still great games on the
gems,
GameCube.
didn't it?
Yeah, like bunches Dope Ass Zeldas. You know, even cool little fun games like Monkey Ball and, you know, Pikmin. I mean, Pikmin's like an artistic thing. It's a bit kiddie, but it's like it's almost like an art game. Like if you think about it, stuff like that, you know. And the Game Boy Advance era, I think that handheld didn't get enough of a shot. Like the DS kind of took over probably earlier than it needed to. And the DS is probably better if we're being honest. But I think the Game Boy Advance had some really great games on it, particularly RPGs that, you know, people don't talk about. So for me, that's the era that works for me. Again, maybe it's just because it pertains to the sort of the time that, you know, the nostalgia and everything. But
I think the same. PS2 was my favourite, and it's when I remember really enjoying games. I like the PS3 as well. My least favourite is probably now, because I can't remember falling in love with a game for a long time.
Yeah, I'm a bit similar. I would say my least favourite was towards the end of the PS3 generation, because I feel like games midway through of the PS3 generation and Xbox 360 generation stopped being made for me, and then they were starting to be made for younger people, like, you know, like my nephew Taylor or whatever. You know,
low
like,
attention spans.
You could say that, but I think they start to shift making games for him, and that's fine. I get that, you know, like that's the new youth, and soon enough, you know, games will start be making for them. They'll start be making for the next generation, but I find it difficult because I don't feel anyone's making games for me really that much. I mean, I feel like I'm starting to get games that speak more to me now in the PS4 generation. You know, in the Xbox One generation, I think there's games starting to come across. Like Fallout 4, I really liked that, and I'm looking forward to some really cool games. I think Metal Gear Solid 5 would probably float my boat, you know, maybe one day when I get to play that. And there's a bunch of games like that, and loads of games I'm looking forward to. So I think it's starting to get back.
I think at launch I had a few games, and then there's just nothing I wanted for quite a long time.
Oh yeah, for about 2 years, this generation for me, the most recent generation, has been a bit dead. I mean, particularly with first parties, and especially on the PlayStation, there's no real first parties that are a must-have unless you're into like Bloodborne, or now you could argue there is one in Uncharted 4, which is, if not out now, then well, it's probably not just out at the time of recording, but it will be by the time this video goes live. So, but yeah, even that, Uncharted doesn't really speak for me. I've not really played it that much. I mean, maybe I'd like it a lot, but I think we are starting to get there with that generation. But I would agree with you totally, Lou. Like that's the era that I felt like I had the most fun with games. You know, I enjoyed them the most. You know, they were speaking to me as a thing.
I remember just with some games being totally absorbed.
Yeah, that's it. You would just, you know, lose yourself in some of the games. It's hard to think of them off the top of my head. Like maybe I should have wrote down a little list of games that spoke to me, but there were lots of games did. So
Yeah, I loved like the PlayStation 2 and that. I think, like, I remember Mum buying me the PlayStation 1 and I was like stoked about it. I'd got like Spyro and Crash Bandicoot, but I remember the PlayStation 2. I saved up my £5 pocket money that I used to get every week until I got enough to buy the PlayStation 2. It took me fucking forever,
yeah,
but I did it. So it was so satisfying to finally get it, and like and I got San Andreas with it as well.
yeah.
And it was just like I spent my life on there.
San
Like,
Andreas
whole
is
summer holidays.
a great
I
game.
think it was also good because it wasn't a loss. It was back compatible, wasn't it?
Yeah,
yeah, I think
the big
it
chunky
was,
one was
wasn't it?
definitely.
So you didn't have to let go of all your favourites.
I think
well.
later
And then
on
I think-
they started to phase that out, didn't they? Where it's not.
Yeah, the
backwards
Slims were a
compatible.
bit more.
Although I'm not sure actually. I've got the newest PS2 still.
No, I think
pretty
it was
sure
okay.
you
It
can
was
play
supposed
PS1 on
to,
it.
but it was more
I
sensitive.
hang on to my PS1 games. I've still got a lot of them.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think most, if not all, generations of the PS2, iterations.
Yeah, it was just
I
more
should say.
sensitive, like the when they got to the Slims and stuff. I reckon. Like some of the really old PlayStation ones wouldn't go on it.
My
But
my
no.
Slim, all the PS1 games I've tried on it still work. So
Yeah, but that's a nice point to mention.
Yeah.
That's a good point. They don't really backwards compatible. They don't really do that anymore. It's because they keep changing the architecture. But if they keep doing these half steps, these PlayStation Neos and whatnot, they're really going to need to make backwards compatible a thing going forward if that's what they're going to do. Because you're not going to want to throw all games out after like 3 years or whatever. You're going to want to be able to play those older games. And obviously these steps are going to be that, but I think it would be nice to see it going forward. There's rumours about the NX as well being backwards compatible. I think that would be an amazing idea for all Wii U players if they could somehow play their Wii U games on the NX. I think that's a smart decision. But yeah, anyway, so what have you picked then, V? Are you also going for the PS2 era or PS1 or?
Yeah, I think I'll stick with the PlayStation 2. If not PlayStation 2, then PlayStation 1. But yeah, I think I'll stick with the PS2 mainly because, like you said, it was the one that kind of I took it more serious, and I really started to enjoy the games, and you know, in a proper way rather than just having a mess.
I think when you think about it, if you take GameCube out of it to a degree, Xbox and PlayStation 2, the original Xbox, it's where gaming started to feel more grown up. It wasn't just. They were already sort of doing that to a degree on the PlayStation 1, but it felt like you start to get some adult titles. These games were clearly not meant for children. So many of the games, like, don't get me wrong, plenty of children played them. I wasn't very old when the PS2 was about. But they're not like even GTA. Like, kids shouldn't be playing it now. They do, but GTA is not meant for children. It's meant for adults. God. It was always meant for adults. And like there were horror games. Silent Hill. Silent Hill was not meant for children.
Don't let your children play that unless you want them camped out in your bed.
I can barely deal with it. Like, and I'm supposed to be an adult.
I mean, they were starting to do that in the previous generation, but I think it really all the things came to fruition in that era and really became what they are. And then maybe it's rose tinted glasses as well. Like, maybe would say now is such a great era for gaming, and I think it is to a degree. I think it's definitely an era for indie games. It's like a golden era for indie games, but still I don't feel those games are necessarily made for me or capturing my heart per se, like games did back then. So, but I think we're starting to get there. I think slowly but surely we're starting to get games that are made for me. So
our taste, yeah.
I really like the SNES Mega Drive generation as well, like, or NES, we call it SNES over here. So like, but there really really are some.
The thing that I always remember with those is that, and that PS1 came as such an amazing thing. No save points.
Yes. Yeah,
Save codes maybe for levels. But that was
yeah,
the best you'd get.
save points were
And
rare.
what a soul destroyer that was.
Yeah, you would, but
Yeah.
it's kind of a cunning little trick as well to get you to play that game through from a certain point, or something like that.
Mm.
You can't get to keep all your things. Save points are a great thing, but then you start to get the territory of like wiped saves and people deleting your saves and not having enough space on your memory cards. But you're right, they were a quantum leap and stuff. It's all like super annoying when someone fucking takes your memory card and then deletes your important saves. Oh,
I remember a lot of that happening.
that's super irritating.
Like,
Well, we had to share.
Yeah, it was like it's interesting. I went back a while ago to record some footage from my PS2 and like looking at the saves on the memory cards. It's crazy. Some of the like old Final Fantasy saves and things. It's like kind of cool to look back through them and stuff. And memory cards seems like starts to seem like such a weird, quaint thing at this point, doesn't it? Because everything saves to like a hard drive or the cloud or something. It's like.
yeah.
It seems very quaint, but they were really cool. I liked it, so I think it was good stuff. Yeah, so I think we've come to a consensus as usual. I'm going to go with great minds think alike, and
Aye.
I think we've gone for the 6th generation as our favourite generations of consoles. So.